right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. So this show is called Flight Safety and How Not to Drown. A little background about it. For most of my life, I've been moving around. In total, I've moved 45 times, some of that as a child, some of that as an adult. A few years ago, I found out that it had been sort of a central theme in my life, moving from place to place to place. And this work naturally developed over the last few years when I took into account all of the places that I had been. And it's been a transient kind of lifestyle, but also transient while trying to create roots. And it's been really tricky. But over the last couple of years, it ended up developing its own symbol. All these symbols happened over time, like we have the deer and the scissor-tail flycatchers and the dog's bane plants and nests and now portals, which I feel like the portals are in connection to doors, and doors will, open and close opportunities, places, and spaces. So some of the symbol, like the scissor-tail flycatcher, you'll see that in a lot of the pieces, but that is representative of this idea of flying and fleeing from one place to the other. But that bird in particular is hopes for a better place when you land somewhere. The deer, you'll see that around too. The deer is kind of an interesting connection for me because I feel like it's almost like a spiritual, otherworldly connection. There was one time when I passed out, I had my blood drawn, I don't like needles. And instead of blacking out, I was a deer in a field, and the grass was green and it was sunny and the sky was blue, and I laid my head down on the grass and I woke up and I was in the hospital instead. But since then I've drawn on deer imagery and symbol and connection to that. So for me, it kind of represents this idea of a hidden life or a quiet life, because deer are oftentimes on the outskirts of towns, or you won't see them much, or you won't hear them much. They kind of stick to themselves. So on these doors, you'll see that there are deer in these images. The ones that are hung up represent this idea of the deer being shot down and killed and having to start over somewhere else with a new life. And that life is now just kind of like hung on the wall and put to rest. And so we start over. And then over on this side, you might see one that's asleep in a corner. And that is in connection to one of the houses in that piece. And it represents the idea of being asleep and having a safe space to be and to exist. These two pieces opposite each other are on large door panels, and I thought that would be really perfect for the type of subject matter. But they are multiple houses layered one on top of the other. Each of these has 3 houses layered on top to show the interior of each of these houses that I lived in. And these are just 6 of 45. But I tried to remember where all the windows were, where all the furniture was, where the doors were, how big the space was, what angles the walls moved at. And surprisingly, I realized it was like a mental map in my brain, sort of like navigating new areas, driving from place to place to place. The interior of these houses connected in the same way. Eventually, I started playing around with the idea of bird's nests because of the bird imagery. And the bird's nest became a portal also, sort of like a door. So now I feel like portals are synonymous with doors, which is why this one happened. This one still incorporates birds in a way, but not specifically visually. But all these little squares are meant to mimic the way that a flock of birds might move if it's picking up off the ground and moving all at once together. That's all I can think of to say right now. Does anyone have any questions? Okay.
You ever experiencing creativity drought?
Do I experience a creativity
Drought, and if you do, how do you get it?
a creativity drought? Sometimes I do. So I like to kind of go with my own ebb and flow of creativity. I don't like to push it too much. Sometimes, like, it's just not happening and I can't think of anything to make, nothing's coming out right, and so I just leave it alone, sometimes for a couple months, and then it just comes back. Okay. Yes? Mm-hmm.
I'm curious about the use of the term portal. I associate that with magic,
Mm-hmm.
and I wondered if it has that same kind of overtone for you. Is it portal just a door, or is it signify something?
I feel like, personally for me, energetically, portals are like endings and transitions and going from one place to the next. Not necessarily specifically like a door, but I do feel like making a portal, making a door, making an opening is energetically this idea of letting in something new or closing something off. But energetically, I also feel like drawing portals will open doors and portals in a way. I hope that makes sense. Yes?
Can you talk about your material? And I love seeing the material come through in this one. Can you talk about that and your process of that?
Yeah, so this one is a panel, and originally when I got it, I figured I would sand it down and make it smooth, just like a regular wood panel to paint on would be. And then I got the idea suddenly just to keep it as is, because these looked like they had tiles on them, and I thought, you know, how perfect that would be to represent the idea of picking up a home and then leaving again with working on a surface that was like tiles put on and then ripped off. So trying to build something and then having to tear it down again. So that's where the texture of this one comes from. Same with the texture of that one too. Yes?
Thank you first for sharing about your experience about this work. There's something that feels like almost sacred what you're bringing to us. And I have lots of questions, but one of them is, I'm wondering in those growing up years, if you had a relationship to birds.
To birds. I didn't really have one to birds. My sister did, but birds would attack her all the time, so we kind of stayed away from birds.
That's resonating with our campus community because of our relationship with kids here sometimes.
Okay.
And then I wonder if you could maybe talk with us more about this piece, the feet, the movement, this present.
Yeah, this was the idea of just walking and moving and constantly going and going and going and never really stopping. Like never stopping to sit. It's just only walking. Yes?
I was just interested in the type of tools and thought and the designing of different pieces, especially this one here.
That one back there?
Can you kind of explain the use of charcoal and any other means of creating the lines?
That creating what?
In creating the lines of the face and the
Okay.
background?
Okay, so for the charcoal piece, the process of creating that one is like a subtractive method with charcoal. I put the charcoal down and smear the whole background, except this time I only made a deer shape as the shadow for the background. And then I used the side of the charcoal to make some of the shadows and just make marks. And a lot of it happened really quickly, really easily, and I didn't have to do a lot of give and take with this charcoal method, but I like that method because it does have give and take to it. You can go back, you can erase, and you can mark over it and do it again.
Did you use any other method in the blending aspect?
No, just hands.
It's sort of interesting. It has a brush look. And if you was to take a real nice soft brush and with a little bit of water and created the lines and movement of the face.
Yeah, I could see that, but it was just the charcoal stick.
Okay.
Yes?
You touched on the other painting, how when you look back and you saw that it looked like tiles. Are there any other moments of spontaneity in your paintings, or did it also capture?
Moments of spontaneity. I would say this one is definitely spontaneous.
In what respect?
Well, I got this idea 3 days ago. And so I spent the last 48 hours working on it. And I got it all up last night around 10. And I would say that's really spontaneous because I did not have this idea prior.
What about this made it so spontaneous that now it's got
I think a lot of it was just that I had the space and time to make it.
Pardon me?
I had the space and time to make it. So I had 3 days total set aside just to hang this show. And I don't usually have 3 days of free time. And so all the free time I had, after hanging what I could, I just thought, oh, I'll just make this thing, because it just popped into my brain. And so now I can, so let's act on it. Yes?
How do you know when a piece is done?
Usually just when I feel like walking away from it.
Do you ever come back to a piece after it's been done and you're like, nah, I gotta do a little bit more?
No. After I put it away, I usually forget about it or space about it and think it doesn't exist anymore, and I'm on to the next idea. I don't usually revisit them. Yeah?
So you mentioned you lived in 45 places, and 6 of those are represented in these 2.
Uh-huh.
What was it about those 6 places that made you want to represent them?
So these were the start of when I moved to Wichita, and I moved here from Wellington. And I went through a big life transition at that time. I had a baby, I dropped out of college, I worked as an artist, and I got a divorce, and I moved cities. And so I figured this would be a good place to start. Anything else?
Can you talk a little bit more about your planning? So like, if you use sketchbook or if it's graphic, experimental, just like for art students or classes, what's your planning process?
Okay. So the planning process with the ideas, honestly, most of it just stays in my brain, in my head. My life is pretty fast-paced, going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, almost every day. I don't have a lot of time to sketch, but I'm a very visual person, so I rely on those images just to sit in my brain and develop over time. But I've noticed if I go to make the piece immediately, sometimes the idea starts to change, and then it changes so fast to where whatever I just made doesn't apply anymore. And so I've learned to sit with my ideas for a little while, usually at least a few months now, and just let them kind of stew. Yes?
What's been your most rewarding experience as an artist?
I really think the thing I like most about it is getting to connect to individual people and have shared experiences. Not even necessarily making the work, but it's really the result of making it. Mm-hmm.
Why did you pick orange and pink for this transition?
Oh, that's a good question. Because when I laid this out, I thought this would be like the sunrise, and then this would be the sunset when things get darker. And I thought this would be like a flip of it. Like the sun is bright over here, but then it throws light over here. And this side is dark, so it's kind of like the night, and so it's sort of like switching day and night for a second.
And I guess to go off of that, there's a lot of symbolism in your work.
Mm-hmm.
Does your color choices serve another aspect of the symbolism?
I think it does. I think so. So this one over here, this little portal, that one is more bright and it's more light, but it is the idea of coming out of the portal. So it's kind of like the idea of a light at the end of the tunnel. You see something bright there and you're coming out of it. So it's bright and it's happy. So it has lighter colors. And then this one, in contrast, has darker colors because you're going into the portal. And when you go into something new, you don't know what it's going to be like. So it's like going into darkness and a little more unknown, which I feel like is the idea of going underwater, which is partly how the how not to drown comes up. Because we don't know what's under the water. We can't really see in there. It's dark, it's murky, but maybe there's something better under there. Yes?
Ask another one. Could you talk about the tracks? The animal footprints, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I wanted this one to have a natural feel to it, kind of woodsy. So it does have sticks and branches and leaves, but I also feel like animal tracks and human prints can be very natural and woodsy and earthy. And creature-like. These ones are my own handprints, and then these ones are these are made to be wolf prints, but I also feel slightly connected to the idea of a wolf as well. And for me, energetically, I feel like I'm putting wolf energy into this piece. Yes?
Do you have a certain amount of time to decide each day you step on your art, or do you just do it when you have the time?
I do it when I have time. There have been times where I can set aside certain days, but most of the time I just have to do it when I can. But I do have to make the effort and make the time and sometimes make myself show up for what I want to do. Yes?
Since this one is made of multiple pieces, did you do it all at one time, or did you do each piece separately and then combine it?
So the way I did this one is I cut a lot of paper and I placed it on my basement floor the way I wanted it to be arranged. And I drew a rough outline of the portal, the circle. And then individually on each page, then I brought out more detail. But they don't connect, and I want them to be slightly disconnected because I like the idea of trying to piece something together, and you can still piece it together even if it doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm.
How do you define wolf energy?
Wolf energy.
How does it
Like visually, I can see it, I can feel it. I'm gonna try to describe it. It's like running at full force with some kind of power to your feet and your steps, faster than the wind, larger than anything. Also with these wolves, I feel like they're larger, they're like 8 feet tall. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it feels like
love in so much depth here, and it really connects to Beyond the Border as well. But it's like that you identify with the deer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, as you worked on this piece and you associate the wolf energy, do you feel like on some level there was some form of a wolf that was pursuing you? I'm sorry, that sounds a little abstract, but I feel like that the work is leaning in that direction.
Do you mean like a wolf is hunting me or stalking me, or a wolf is pursuing me to walk with me?
Both.
Both. I feel like it's more like walking with me. What is your specific question again?
The relationship between the deer and the wolf.
The deer and the wolf. I feel like it's the idea of changing from one thing to another, one energy to another, almost like a shapeshifter, in a sense. Mm-hmm.
To go into that, because that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
One's prey, one's predator.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a component with it?
I think so.
Okay.
I think it is. One's more just existing or running, and the other one is going after what they want.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes?
And I that reflects so well in here, where you have, these took, the planning, the time, you've been working on this for so long,
Mm-hmm.
and really you've had that, but you know that you also had all of the time and the space once you got in here, but it's that adrenaline too of, well, I do only have 3 days.
Uh-huh.
Because you did something that's so you, right, just using that extra adrenaline kick
Mm-hmm.
that did kick in once you got here.
Yeah,
But
it did.
out here is your deer energy that is saying, now that I have this time and this space to be, this is what gets to come out.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
And it's so good to see this kind of, this kind of work that is so you, and, next to this, it perishable, and to see that one again, was really, really sweet.
Thank you.
I think to add to that, and,
Mm-hmm.
very good. I love what you mentioned too about the coming out. Like you really feel that going in, the coming out, and really you want to know, you want to be on the receiving end of whatever is there for you. Thank you for bringing that to us.
Thank you. Yeah, I like the idea of being on the receiving end of this, but I also really like the idea of going into the unknown. I feel really comfortable with it. I don't feel like one is better than the other anymore. Mm-hmm.
Journeying into the unknown also seems to parallel your journey in life, where you never knew where the next
Mm-hmm.
place you were going to live was.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yes?
After moving around for so long, do you crave stability, or are you okay with it?
I would like stability, and I've been working to build it. It's been a lot of effort because, a lot of it is really just kind of systematic, not having any kind of upper hand in anything, no resources, building from zero. But I think I'm at the point where I would like some stability. I still like the idea of building my own home and living there for quite a time. But I do also want to travel, and I want to move around, and I think I would get bored if I stayed in one place too long. But one way that I'm kind of combating that is that I rearrange my house and my furniture about every 2 months. Everything just shifts, and it seems to kind of appease the need to move around. Okay, anything else?
Just one more thing.
Uh-huh.
Could you talk about the media that you use? You're using stencils too,
Mhm.
and spray paint?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I use a lot of stencils. I do hand cut stencils, for the leaves or for the birds. because the way that I would like to make the birds look in movement is I kind of want them to be overlaying each other, kind of coming in and out, but that would take a ridiculous amount of time to draw individually on a paper, so I decided to just go with stencils, and I really enjoy it. Yeah, I use stencils and charcoal and chalk pastel, but all this brown here that you see, that is a homemade ink from walnuts. So there was one year where I went out and I just collected a bunch of walnuts and I boiled them all and drained them all and then made ink with it. But making the material also kind of played a role in moving from house to house to house to house, because at that time when I made it, I had no money to buy ink. Like I was at $1 for my total name. And you know, there's just no way to buy ink, so I just made it. And I've made my own charcoal too. Yeah, I don't make spray paint. I don't know how to do that. But I do have materials to make my own paper also. So I'm looking forward to doing that this summer.
Any other questions?
Mm-hmm.
Do you listen to music at all, or are you silent?
I do. I usually play music and will kind of zone out while I make artwork.
What genre?
I don't know what to call it, but I've been listening to a lot of Mr. Gnome for a couple years and a lot of David Bowie.
Does the music ever inspire anything, or is it just to have something?
I don't think it necessarily inspires anything, but I do feel like it shares an energy. Okay.
Please join me in thanking